Hello, and welcome to yet another completely unprofessional interview, the only tabletop role playing game interview show that is hosted by a registered Anglophile. 6 more years of probation. You believe that crap? But speaking of the UK, our guest today is yet another special guest. All of my guests are special as far as I'm concerned, who hails from the UK. He is the author of such wonderful games as Romance of the Perilous Lands, Quill, and I had it up here. It's the ones that I recently enjoyed: Stargazer, Heroes of Avalon. Just prolific. I mean, there's a constant stream of games constantly coming from my guest here. So today I welcome Scott Malthouse. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. Great.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So, one of the things that I like to do is just have a little chat with people about their introduction into the hobby, whether it be
Sure.
role-playing games, video games. Like I spoke with Mike Evans yesterday, and his general introduction was, JRPGs through gaming consoles, and then into that, and so on. So, indulge me in the people watching. What was your introduction into gaming?
So I think it was probably back in I want to say the mid-90s.
Yeah.
It was Fighting Fantasy.
Oh.
I think it must have been about 98,
Mhm.
maybe slightly earlier, but my stepdad brought home a sort of a moldering pile of yellowed Fighting Fantasy books from the local college bookshop.
Mhm.
And they'd all been sort of written in and stuff. And it's like the first time I'd seen anything like this. And of course, I think like any child at the time, where I must have been about what 9, 10.
Mhm.
Um, I looked at those Russ Nicholson, Ian McCaig, illustrations,
Mhm.
and they're amazing. These horrific, gory, totally inappropriate um,
Eh,
the illustrations were fantastic,
yeah.
and lo and behold, it was also a game, which like really captured me. I'd always been into games, into video games.
Mhm.
I had my the Sega Mega Drive, as you might call it, the Master System,
Yep.
or the Genesis even. Not the Genesis. The Master System was before.
Yes.
Um, and so I was kind of a big gamer back then. So I was really into the sort of the dice rolling mechanics and the uh, obviously always cheating,
Mm.
but you've got to get somewhere. Five finger
Yeah.
bookmark, I think. Yeah, I think Ian Livingstone calls it. Sir Ian Livingstone.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of where I started, I suppose, in that kind of soft role playing element.
Mhm.
And I guess from then I sort of moved on. I say moved on. I still collect and love the Fighting Fantasy books and go to Fighting Fantasy Fest
Mhm.
every time it's organised by Jonathan Green and his family. The next was Warhammer, which I was in in fact, it's just down the road still from me. There's a youth club that I used to go to, and I would sort of talk to my friends there, and they would talk about this amazing game called Warhammer 40,000, where you are elves on speeder bikes. And there's hulking space marines and things. And I thought, hey, that sounds pretty cool, but it was
Yeah.
also very expensive. So yeah, it was kind of taking my mum to the shopping centre, to Games Workshop, and like,
Mhm.
oh, what can I get? And I got I think like, I'm not sure what edition it was. It must have
Mhm.
been, I want to say sixth, maybe fifth, probably fifth
Okay.
actually. Um, so a combat patrol, some paints, splat them up. They look terrible, kind of melting waxworks,
Yeah.
buggle eyes. Um, And I kind of played that a bit, and that sort of again, it's this big chain that I think you see from a lot of people, where you've just got a chain of different kinds of games as people discover, this sort of this new world of gaming, and that very much led me to D&D.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, well, the thing is that actually it's really strange, because I was sort of walking around with my friend, and
Hmm.
again, this must have been 2000. It was just as third edition had been released, and um, we were talking about like we say, hey, have you heard of this game? It's called Dungeons and Dragons. Like we're talking about crack or something.
Right.
But like we say, "Oh, this Dungeons and Dragons," but I got it completely mixed up, because I brought it up, but I actually thought it was a board game that I actually owned, which the name evades me now. It's called Dark something. It's like a Waddington's game. I guess
Okay.
when Hero Quest had all this sort of all the copycats.
Yes.
It was like that, but I for some reason got that mixed up with D&D. So
Hmm.
oh, that, yeah, well, let's go and play that. And I couldn't find like that sort of I can't remember what it's called, dark something. I couldn't find that. Someone had taken it and put it somewhere in
Oh, yeah.
storage. So we thought, okay, we'll go to the local gaming store and ask about Dungeons and Dragons. Um, so I was taken, and they was like, oh, by the way, there's this new edition. Because we looked, we saw Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So
Hmm.
that seems technical. It's advanced. But the guy who actually still works there
Oh,
at
really?
the local gaming store, Traveling Man, which is there's a few stores in the UK, and sort of kind of one of the main gaming comic book hobby stores. He said, "Oh, well, there's a starter set called Adventure Awaits," and it was like, speaking of Hero Quest, it's sort of I don't know if you remember that one. It was sort of they kind of mixed the 3E sort of mechanics role playing,
Yeah.
but made it more of a Hero Quest thing.
Yeah.
Um, which was really cool, and we played that straight away, and we loved it, and from then got the Monster Manual, and the player handbooks and everything, and
Yeah.
couldn't make head nor tails of what any of it meant, because we were teenagers.
Right.
um, but we, like I think like a lot of people do, when they're young and they're playing, whether it's AD&D or whatever it is, or
Hmm.
maybe people picking up 5e now. Um, Although I guess now there's a whole lot more places you can go to understand the rules a little bit more, and of
Yeah.
course, third edition was very very crunchy, but still we liked it. So we played our own sort of version of it, and as is the case a lot of the time, you go to university, you kind of stop playing for a bit,
Hmm.
and we sort of, myself and my friend who originally picked up D&D, we came back to it. That was when fourth edition was out, so we thought, okay, we'll get back into it. We'll get a group together, play some 4E. I'm a big 4E fan.
Yep.
Um, so it's sort of, and then it kind of it took off from there, really, in terms of just getting into lots and lots of different games.
Hmm. That's interesting, because I do feel that a lot of the 4E fans are of a certain age demographic. There's
Mm.
the people that been around since day one. I'm not one of them. I mean, I discovered the earlier editions, but I really didn't start playing until second edition. But and then third edition, and but it just feels like those who kind of maybe started with third and hit fourth, they don't have a problem with it. In fact, they love it for a variety of reasons. They don't have that weird of like, oh my god, they completely destroyed Dungeons and Dragons and the entire aesthetic. They What were they thinking? What were they doing? And then but that's after a certain age demographic, there's people like, what are you talking about? It's perfectly fine for what it is, and a lot of people
It's
enjoy it.
yeah, it's its own game.
Yeah.
And I think that they all are. All of the editions are their own game,
Yes.
and you kind of have to treat them as such. There's so much I love about, BX. Absolutely one of my favorite editions.
Hmm.
The Holmes Blue Book.
Yeah.
Been recently kind of diving back into OD&D
Hmm.
and really reading through that and understanding it a little bit more for what it is.
Hmm.
And I think there's something to be found, even though right now I don't really play D&D.
Hmm.
I think there's something to be found in every edition. Something that you could potentially like, or there's always an edition for someone.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you're very you're very correct about that, because there's I'm not of that particular set of, like, it's first edition was the best, or OD&D was the
Mm.
best, or whatever. Everyone has its individual goods and bads. I do feel later in life, when you kind of have more of the capacity to kind of sit down and kind of compartmentalize, each editions, and just kind of look at them, you can appreciate them for what they are. 'Cause like you said, when you're younger, you're not reading everything. You don't want to waste your time. You want to get the game to the table. You want to play with your friends. It's the weekend. Let's get this game rolling. And you're
Mhm.
just hand waving this and creating that, and having a wonderful time. And you're not really indulging in the aspect of, like, oh, well, this is the end all, the end all. You're just in that natural play zone of just, we're having fun, and this is a great time. And as you get older, that's when the nostalgia goggles kick in. You're like, I remember this being a lot of fun. Let's go back and take a look at it. And then suddenly you realize, oh my God, this book is completely unorganized and a mess. No wonder we had no idea what we were
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, that's right. And by that time you have a lot more frame of references, don't
Right.
you? You've probably played a lot more games and you're thinking, actually, you know what, I can probably critique a game a little bit better now because
Mhm.
I've developed that palette,
Yeah.
for want of a better word, of different games. So, yeah, you look back and think, I've been going back and reading some of the third edition stuff,
Mhm.
and I understand it a lot more now. But also, you can totally see where this is just bad. Some of these rules are bad, but some of these rules are amazing,
Mhm.
and some of the flavors so fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always going to be some element to nitpick. I don't think you're never going to get an edition that pleases everyone.
No.
And I think the more editions you play, the less pleased people get.
Exactly. There's going to come a day when my son is going to be my age, and he's going to be,
Mm.
yelling at the younger crowd going, "No, you don't understand. 5e was the best there ever was. Why are you playing this 10th edition? Are you crazy? The fifth 5e was the pinnacle." And I'll be in my wheelchair drooling going, "No, second edition." But
Let me tell you about advantage and disadvantage.
Oh, grandpa's talking about Thaco again. He needs his medicine. So yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed on something that is important. And this is what I see with a lot of people, and also people that I've spoken to on the podcast and here, is it seems to be there's this kind of almost natural progression for people who end up creating games when you listen to their history, that they, regardless of how they started, they exposed themselves and were exposed to a variety of games, in their youth, that kind of led them. And as they're playing with these games, they are mixing and matching things that they like and trading out bits and rules and being very creative. And which kind of leads to the natural point of, like, well, maybe I can do something with this. But I do feel that that's an important aspect. Even if you're not going to go out and ever publish or write a game, the more games you're exposed to, it's just the more enjoyable the experience can be, because you suddenly realize that, oh my God, there are better ways of doing this. There's ways to enjoy this game and that game and have a wonderful time with it. And I do, that's kind of one of the things that I kind of discuss in regards to my son and his friends, and any time that there's a new kid that gets involved, is sure, enjoy 5e or whatever your entry game is, but at a certain point, if you start feeling like you want to try something else, do it. Even if your friends don't want to, go get a book, go read it. Don't feel like that you have to play in this particular style or fashion or game forever. but expose yourself to as many games as possible because it opens up a wonderful door. I mean, uh, I'm here to interview you, but I'm talking about my son. But my son right now, they're currently in the progress of they discovered 3.5, and so they're having an absolute blast with that. I've run a few games with it, but he's a Morkborg fanatic. So they're mixing and matching. He has this sheet of paper where he's mixing bits and pieces of 3.5 and what he likes about Morkborg and doing his thing. And of course and he's playing with his friends, testing it out. And I'm like, well, can I come watch? Absolutely not. No, I don't want you to come and
Ah,
critique me.
you
Uh,
you're banned.
yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm dad. I'm still dad. As much as I could be, Ian Livingston, and still like, you don't know nothing about gaming. Go away. I'm playing with my friends, old man. But anyways, I digress. So fourth edition, you're a big fan of, and then so you this is so you're in university, if I'm not mistaken, around this time or close
Yeah,
to it.
I'm in university when I start to sort of pick it back up again.
Hmm.
I think that was when 4E launched, and I went down to one of the local gaming stores and played a sort of with a random group there as a
Hmm.
like an intro, one of the intro sessions, and that was a lot of fun. But people weren't really super into playing role playing games where I
Right.
was.
Okay.
Um, so that then brought me to Tunnels and Trolls, where after some internet sleuthing,
Hmm.
found that there was this game where you could play it as a group, but you could also play it solo. You had
Yes.
a character who you could take to a different game book,
Hmm.
and they would have some form of continuity to it, in theory. But
Right.
really, they would just die because they were so hard. These game books. So
Yeah.
the Arena of Kazan and Naked Doom and sort of all these classics. Um, and I got really hooked on TNT and
Right.
sort of and that's also where it sort of started clicking with me that there are different ways, as you've just said, there are
Hmm.
different ways of creating a game. There's different ways of, this one has all the familiarities of what I knew about D&D,
Hmm.
in that, it had very similar sort of scores, but
Right.
other than that, it's very different.
Hmm.
Um, so I got very much into that, and sort of into the online element, sort of forums and what was Trollhalla back then, which was the sort of main meeting space for TNT fans,
Hmm.
and that's sort of where my first foray into game design
Okay.
came. Um, because I've always really liked just writing, and writing fiction and things like that. But I don't really think I'm particularly good at sort of writing stories. I mostly because I kind of just get bored as I'm writing it. I don't know how people do it really, but I found myself that I could write, or I thought I could write. This was the early stuff. It's pretty rough, um, but I was experimenting with writing some Tunnels and Trolls stuff,
Hmm.
some little solo bits, and some GM adventures. Um, and I was kind of doing that myself. Like I wasn't publishing it or anything. I was just sort of making my own, things. But
Hmm.
thought, hey, maybe one day I can put this out. And there was a lot of encouragement around 'cause, like the TNT sort of um I guess fan base is
Hmm.
very DIY.
Right.
There's you look at something like the OSR, or the post OSR, or whatever you want to call it, where you've got some amazing quality stuff
Hmm.
out there, just incredible art and really high quality hardbacks, and a lot of design thinking, right? Um, Whereas with TNT, it was kind of a little bit more punk rock. It was, you kind of just threw something together, which that's why the quality was just a bit, including my stuff, definitely. Um, so I kind of I started putting that together and thought, this is kind of fun.
Hmm.
Um, Once I got out of uni, I decided to put out my first game, which was then USR, the unbelievably simple role playing,
Okay.
um, which this was I can't remember if I don't think this was before Drive Through RPG, but it was certainly Drive Through RPG wasn't really a huge thing
Hmm.
back then in terms of putting your game on there and other people looking at it. I put it on 1,000 typewriters, 1,000 monkeys, which was sort of a host for free games.
Right.
That I'd kind of looked at some, I thought, this is kind of cool. You can just upload your PDF onto there or Word file or whatever it was, and people would download it and play your
Yes.
game. And I thought, oh, that's quite
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah, and so it was, and the reason why I made it unbelievably simple is because I wasn't a particularly good game designer. So I thought, okay, well, I'll make a game that I can just pick up and play and that I like, but it's not going to be particularly complex at all
Hmm.
because I just wasn't at that level really. But people still kind of make hacks to it to this day, which is pretty cool to see that it has that little bit of longevity. I think
Yeah.
it's infrequently talked about, but it is, I think, still there, which is really nice. Sometimes I get emails asking, when's the third edition coming out? But
W-
I
Well, what
I
what
don't
makes
know.
okay? Well, indulge me for a second. What makes it
Mhm.
so unbelievably simple?
Oh, it's very simple, you see. Um, there are three stats:
Hmm.
action, wits, and ego. Each of
Yep.
those you assign a die, so either a D10, D8, or
Hmm.
D6.
Hmm.
And then you have a list of specialisms, which you then just essentially augments that die
Yep.
roll, and it's a roll off against each other. When it comes to combat, the higher roll, you do the difference in damage,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So it's that. I mean, I think I just explained the entirety of the game there. There's a bit more because I sort of did like little hacks, like Cyberpunk one, and things like that, where
Yeah.
there's a little bit more crunch to it, but not
Hmm.
much, just a soupçon of crunch. Um, and but I think people, the people that kind of played it and got in touch with me liked it because it was so simple, and they could kind
Yeah.
of just take it and do what they want with it, and
Hmm.
that which is pretty cool.
Which I mean, you see a lot of that today,
Yeah.
especially with the OSR. There's a lot of these foundational games that, well, to be fair, a lot of the foundational games, things such as Knave and whatnot, that,
Mm.
and even Mork Borg that people have in other games. I could list them all off, but I'm not going to. But that people have used as their foundation and then made something special. They've moved on and created something different. From Knave came, something like Cairn or something like that, and just a jumping off point for them. And we'll still continue to, I'm sure, as it progresses into the future, as these, as I everyone seems to have like a crunch phase where they're just like, oh, just shower me in rules. I just want
Yeah.
to. I just want to have a role for every little bit, and then it's a phase, and then at a certain point you're like, I've got a life. I may have a family. I may have kids. I don't have time for this crap anymore. My eyesight is failing. Can I just give me three stats and a d6,
Yeah.
please, so I can
My
get
arms
on
are
with the
so
game?
weak I can't pick up the book.
Right, exactly. And so and it just seems like that aesthetic just continues to, it comes in waves, and it's nice to see that not only was, there's a foundation from in the past, where if you look back in the history, such as yourself and people prior to you, that it's still going to continue on, that people will have choices, there will always be the crunchy games. There'll be another super crunchy game coming out, next week, and there'll be another really simple, easy game where all you need to do is just, blink your eye twice, and then that determines what happens in the game. I don't know. I just made that up,
Oh, you should
but
patent that. It's a great mechanic. It's a
it's
staring contest. The first one to cry.
hey, I
Yeah.
mean, it perfect. See, that's. I mean, someone looked at a Jenga tower and said, aha. So, and people loved
Yeah,
it.
I'm scared of this Jenga tower. I should do something horror about it.
Right. So, all right. So you threw USR on 1,000 typewriters and 1,000 monkeys, and was this a monetized site, or was it just strictly here, look at it and enjoy it?
No, it
And
was all, I think everything on there was free.
yeah, so for people to play it and give you feedback, hopefully, regarding the game,
Yeah.
and it's continued on. So you've got some good feedback, and the good thing about good feedback is it motivates you to continue on and try something else. So what comes next then after USR comes out and you see some of this positive feedback coming from it?
So that's when I started putting out the TNT stuff.
Hmm.
So I was putting out little solo adventures and GM adventures that I'd previously written.
Hmm.
Um, and I was just putting that out there, and that's when I started putting things on Drive Through RPG,
Okay.
and Lulu as well, I
Yep.
think. And so those were the first things on there would just it was TNT. So there was one Thorn Guard, which was a sort of little solo city romp thing. There was sort of one that was about sort of making assassins for TNT, making cool assassins and things like that. So
Hmm.
it kind of it came off that, um, and then that's when I really got into sort of designing games and thinking about a little bit more about purposeful design. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and from I guess that also, I got some good feedback from that. I got some good critique
Hmm.
from certainly members of the of Trollhalla and those kind of forums, and
Right.
eventually uh, an outfit called Periton Publishing, a guy called Tom there, and his wife Christine,
Hmm.
who run it. They sort of asked me to do some bits for their ongoing zine, which sadly I don't think that has been around for a couple of years now. But
Hmm.
it was a TNT zine, so
Okay.
I ended up doing a sort of every couple of years I would do an adventure for that, or like a
Okay.
forward, or an article, or something for it. So that then kind of spun off into some of my own published adventures that they
Hmm.
published under the sort of Trollish Delver moniker. So this is when I had my blog,
Hmm.
um, that I still have.
Yes.
So kind of put that together, put it out there, and yeah, had this. It was called the world. That's not the world. It was kind of a country called Peakvale, and both myself and Tom would write our own scenarios and modules within this Peakvale, and it was a very thinly veiled version of the sort of David Cameron in UK as it was back then, sort of a little bit satirical, as sort of TNT is wont to be a
Right.
little bit. Um, so that's kind of when I really started getting
Okay.
into doing stuff for other people, doing stuff for other small publishers.
Hmm. So question, as you stated earlier, so when you started getting serious and started looking at game design from a more, we'll just say, like, kind of more professional point of view, was there anything out there, and this is more for people who are interested in game designers who might watch this, or people who are looking to get into it, was this something that you just your experience that you just kind of did through the old, I'm just going to learn as I go, or did you? Are there any people, books, we'll say, or any other uh, what's the term I'm looking for? Anyways, any people that you looked up to as far as referring to their game design, or any books you might have read to kind of hone that skill?
Yeah, I think definitely two people that I think were crucial
Okay.
in that were S. John Ross,
Okay.
who created Rises,
Mm-hmm.
as well as other. I think he's done some work for GURPS and things like that. He's a pretty talented game designer, really nice chap as well.
Yep.
When I saw Rises, that's when I realized a game can be that condensed and that simple, and still be really fun and still work,
Yeah.
which was really really inspirational. Um, so I really enjoyed that, and the other person was Simon Washburn,
Mm-hmm.
who he was incredibly prolific before he put out Barbarians of Lemuria, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is what most people probably know him
Oh,
for, a really fantastic sword and sorcery game. But before that, he was so good at finding a theme for a game and running with it. So he did one that was sort of based on Baywatch, and he did one that was based called Tales from the Wood, which was based on Duncton Wood, the
yeah.
and Watership Down, and things like that. And that was really inspirational because that was something I'd really never seen before,
Mm-hmm.
using fairly familiar mechanics. But this was certainly before the big indie boom,
Okay.
maybe of the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing these. There was one that was about you play as characters on the home front, sort of Dad's Army style. If
Mm-hmm.
you've seen that, there was one that was gosh, what was it? It was like the famous five and the Secret Seven, the kind of the Enid Blyton books and Lashings of Ginger Beer, and I think, in fact, I think it was called Lashings of Ginger Beer. So he did these games that I thought, oh wow, I thought everything had to essentially be fantasy or sci-fi, and here he was creating these ones where you played a toad, or you played a 9-year-old kid
Right.
drinking ginger beer. Um, so that was really inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of I devoured his stuff, and I was in contact with him for a bit, just in terms of how did you come up with these ideas, and um, I've run a couple of them, but again, these were very rules light.
Right.
Um, so like for me, coming from 4E and third edition D&D, and really coming from a little bit more crunchy, obviously playing TNT, which is a little bit more light, but
Mm-hmm.
still kind of in the vein of D&D, to something that's completely different.
Yeah.
That and Rises, I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, well, there's a whole world here. There's a whole multiverse of games and game styles, and what it's thinking about. Well, why did they select that mechanic there? Why does that work so well in this
Mm-hmm.
game? And thinking about intention in game design, because I guess what I'd done previously was a generic system, which has to sort of fit everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whereas, and you know what, I kind of feel that D&D has sort of gone back to being a little bit more of a generic system now,
Mm-hmm.
rather than being something that's very specific to creating a D&D sort of
D&D feel. Yeah.
adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I was sort of discovering that that there was a lot of intention around design. You know what? I'm sure I'm forgetting others, and
Mm-hmm.
there were a bunch of them, but definitely those are the ones that really stuck with me as I sort of went through that, figuring out how to design a game, and I'm still trying to figure out how to design a game, but there's just a lot more stuff out there to kind of grasp hold of.
Yeah. Yeah, S. John Ross is interesting. For some reason, on the Mastodon on the Dice campsite, just out of the blue, I'll post occasional stupid stuff. That's me. I'll post the silly meme or make a silly comment. I really don't do any of the more serious stuff when it comes to social media, 'cause I don't want to get into it. And just out of the blue, he just starts commenting, silly stuff back, and I'm like, okay. And then and then it seems like every time I post something, he has a comment. I'm like, hi, thanks for commenting, but I don't know why you're singling me out. I mean, it's not negative. I'm just like why? It's still one of those things where there's still a part of me that is that 8 9 year old, and you see a name on a book, Monty Cook or Gary Gygax, and back in those days they were just names. They were these people that lived in the that were ethereal. They were just these people that you never met. I never went to a con when I was a kid, so these were just people on a pedestal. And as you get older, that still doesn't relatively go away. To be perfectly honest, you'll see a prolific name, and you still have a little bit of veneration in them, whether it be a comment on social media where you're just like, Ken Height just liked my comment, squeal, and
Yeah,
stuff
well,
like that.
these are the people that shaped who you are. I mean,
Yeah,
we're very much into role playing games, and that's something that we grew up with. We'll have we'll have had different experiences
yeah,
in doing that, but these names shape that. So when
yeah,
you realize that actually, what, I can talk to these people, and then kind of regular people, it's pretty great and quite inspirational as well. I know that kind of S. John Ross is very chatty, he's very
mhm,
amiable. He's just a really sort of pleasant chat. But yeah,
yeah,
when kind of I wouldn't have thought that that people like Chris Sims and people like that would be sort of interacting with me and kind of
yeah,
following me on social media when I was playing the game that he put together, because that was a really important part of
yeah.
a bit of a stepping stone into who I am, and the kind of what I waste my time doing now.
Oh, so so you got a foundation established, right? And you're
Mm.
interacting with these wonderfully creative people, and you're taking bits of their wisdom, you're learning from them, you're observing them, and you're putting stuff out on Drive Through RPG, on Lulu, and as you said this time, Drive Through RPG then is not what it is now.
Mm.
And so, and I'm looking through your Drive Through RPG listings and whatnot. So what year was that? Just so, do you have a general estimate? Was that 2011, 12
2011.
ish?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was 2011 that I think I put the first thing out on
Okay.
drive through. Mm.
And so
Yeah.
and so you're continuing to create, and a lot of your offerings are there's nothing really huge that I see. Adventures, maybe just things such as USR, little games that you're honing your skill. And so, what was the next big thing as you're creating these games and you're writing for these various game settings and whatnot? And what is the next step as you are progressing through this part of your life then with RPGs?
So I think part of it was I was wanting to challenge myself a bit, and just to think about, okay, the Simon Washbournes of the world can kind of create these really kind of great games in these quite peculiar settings.
Hmm.
Um, so I thought, well, what can I do that's different, that isn't just this kind of the same thing, or putting out an adventure for something. I kind of wanted to do something that was totally kind of off the wall, and you know not really out there. And this was a time when um, there were solo games were
Yeah.
very much fighting fantasy,
Hmm.
and they were Lone Wolf and the kind of the game books.
Right.
Um, but there was one game that I read, and I thought, this is something else.
Hmm.
And that was De Profundis. I think it was second edition De Profundis, which
Hmm.
is and I can't remember the author's name, and that's really bad. But essentially, it was a Lovecraftian horror
Hmm.
game of writing letters.
Ah, okay.
So you write letters to each other. It was very like there were no real mechanics to it. It was more around telling a really creepy story in the style of that
Hmm.
epistolary style of Lovecraft, and I guess Bram Stoker and things like that,
Right.
where um, you would kind of between you and maybe one friend, two friends, you would create a persona, and you would send letters to each other that you would start off like any, I guess, Lovecraftian cosmic horror story, sort of fairly subdued, and it would ratchet up the tension.
Hmm.
Um, but part of that was a chapter called the Phantasmagoria,
Hmm.
and what this was is you can play this game alone. You can play this game on your own. You can just write stuff down, and you could go out and you can sort of put a little bit of a veil on, not literally a figurative veil,
Right.
and you sort of put this sort of Lovecraftian horror veil over everything, and
Hmm.
write down what you experience in sort of your day and things like that. And I thought this was a really compelling, again, something I'd really not seen before, and something that you can kind of play by yourself that isn't a game book type thing.
Right.
I thought that's again, there were no real mechanics to it. There was some kind of suggestion to rolling dice and things like that, but there was really nothing to it. So um, I kind of challenged myself. Well, what could I do something that is um, s- that you can play by yourself, but is something around letter writing. I kind of really like this idea around
Hmm.
writing letters and things like that. But like, how could you do that solo? And that's where Quill came from. I sort of got a notebook and started jotting down some ideas around, well, maybe you're putting together a letter and you're kind of scoring it as you go based on, how good you are at writing. You're trying to impress someone. So you've kind of got all of these different ways to score points to know at the end of it what kind of response you're going to get as sort of
Hmm.
a program response. So um, that I developed kind of Quill from there and thought, this is a weird little game, a really strange little game. And back then when that sort of didn't really exist too much in terms of there wasn't this
Right.
sort of big solo boom.
Yes.
Um, uh, and I put it up and out, within a week, I think it had gone gold.
Hmm.
It just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of downloads, people talking about it. It's like, I have no idea why, or how, because it's just such a weird little game. That so that I thought people are just going to be super bored of this, but I just want to put it out and see what happens. And some people are super bored with it. Because, oh, it's just a writing exercise. Absolutely, it is. But it's a little bit like a LARP. So you're
Right.
kind of taking on the role, and you're writing your letters and things like that. Um, so that was a thing that kind of, I suppose, people started to take note of things that I released after that,
Hmm.
which was really interesting. And that's when I started getting emails and things about, people who liked Quill and the game, which I couldn't. That was a very strange
Oh.
thing to happen. But again, it's a very simple game, right? There's
Hmm.
nothing super complex to it, but I think it's just sort of maybe the way that it was that design intention of
Right.
what really makes why this uh, mechanic over this mechanic, and I sort of thought quite a little bit about that when I was creating it. So that was the thing that really sort of took off, as it
Yep.
were.
Hmm.
It kind of that solo thing before. Really, I'm not trying to say this is a kind of a hipster thing. Oh, it was cool before solo was cool. It was just very interesting at that point where I kind of thought it would just die at death.
Well, it is interesting, and I've thought about solo games quite a bit, simply because there is a boom, so to speak. But in looking through the history of games, and you brought up Tunnels and Trolls, it's always been around. There's always
Mm,
been a solo version of a game, whether it be a gaming book or even proper role playing games. Most of them, and one way or another, either have an official or unofficial version of, do you want to play this solo, because a variety of reasons. From no one wants to play the RPGs with you, there's no people around, you're busy, whatever the case may be, but they still want to go out and play these games. And but now it's almost like, but this was out of more necessity. But now it seems like it's not necessarily out of necessity. It's just people just enjoy them. It's like watching a movie on their free time or playing a video game. It's just another outlet of entertainment that they do for fun. Whereas it
yeah,
seemed to be, they still did it for fun, but it's more of an just out of the necessity of not having other people to play with. And of course, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but during the entire lockdown, that was another outlet for people to continue to enjoy role playing games. Whereas, their only outlet was with people. There's many people discovered the wonders of what we're talking on right now during lockdown and realized, oh, it just never occurred to me I can play games, play role playing games like this. But then there's people like a little bit older than myself who are just like, I barely know how to turn on my computer, but I want to do something, and I've read Return to Brickmere 800 times. I don't want to read it again. Oh wait, what's this wonderful solo game that I just discovered and I can play and enjoy myself with. So I don't, I know you say that it's a surprise to you, but I do feel that there's a certain power that comes with the ability to have that opportunity for people to enjoy role playing games when they just don't have other people available to play them with. And so, yes, it shouldn't be too much of a shock how widely popular it is, because they're like, finally, finally. And also, it's like, I don't want to play any more Tunnels and Trolls. Is there any other solo games out there? Oh, there's this. Great, let's play this. Um,
yeah, yeah. No,
so,
it's a good point.
mhm,
And I think that it was, I think maybe, I think potentially it was the novelty factor as well, that it was,
mm,
it was just a straight. It was tagline was a letter writing role playing game for
playing
a
game.
single player, which was a very odd thing at the time. I think now I think if I put Quill out now, it wouldn't get. I don't think it would get a look in, because the solo games that are created now are
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
The themes and the production quality,
Mhm.
it's just incredible. The putting out games that are just rivaling, traditional, multiplayer
I
tabletop
mean,
role playing games, right? That there's some incredible stuff out there,
people are
and
willing to
really
spend
weird stuff.
people are
Yeah,
willing to spend $60 on a solo journaling game. It's
yeah,
1,000-Year-Old Vampire. It's a beautiful book. It's wonderful, but
it's
you know,
amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
but it's just it is one of those things like, whoa, boy. I'm going to get the PDF. Um, it's but yeah, it's still and there's this wonderful game, and also GMless games. The Oracle
mm,
type games seem to be making another cyclical comeback, as almost everybody these days has some sort of, again, third party or Oracle type game. I mean, right now people are going nuts over the solo Star Trek games that are coming out, and they're just having an absolute blast with that. um, so Quill, wonderfully received, and again, you're getting noticed, you're getting some feedback, and if I'm not mistaken, you won an award for Quill. So,
Yeah, yeah.
mhm. And and well deserved. So you're creating more. So there's other supplements to Quill. So Quill, Shadow and Link, and then further on down the road, you did make a Morkborg compatible version for that. But what are you doing then after Quill? Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get to the point where Romance of the Perilous Lands comes out.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I think that's when I start doing my memories is so bad,
Oh,
but
that's fine.
I was sort of putting out um I think I discovered the Black Hack then.
Okay.
Um and I was playing around with the OSR
Hmm.
because this was when, it was the heyday of Google Plus.
Yes.
Um and sort of that the thinking and philosophizing and arguments about the OSR started, and that appealed to me because I was thinking back to how much fun I had with D&D when I played that. And well, I
Hmm.
think at this point I was actually still playing. I was playing in I was running a 4E campaign at that point, but it was great to see that there was actually you couldn't get the older editions. So I think that and sort
Right.
of Labyrinth Lord were my first
Hmm.
introductions to, oh, okay, so the older editions were like totally different, like way different, and pretty cool. I quite
Yeah.
like them. So I kind of I really like the Black Hack, and I thought, okay, well, what can I do with this? How can I
Hmm.
hack it? So I did off the back of that, I did the Pull Pack,
Okay.
which is kind of put vigilantes and adventurers and Doc Savage type stuff, the Shadow, as for the Black Hack, um, and then I think around when 5e came out,
Hmm.
I was looking through that, and that was I think that was really promising when when the initial playtest came out, because
Yeah.
I think there was a lot made around it being this I suppose a modular game. It was supposed to be this kind of game where you can let you pair it all the way back and have something that's a little bit more, something a little bit more akin to BX, or you
Hmm.
can really put all the bells and whistles on it and have a little bit more of a, I guess, a third edition type
Right.
thing. Turns out that didn't quite come
No.
to fruition in terms of the final product, but
Right.
it was an interesting premise that kind of got me thinking. Okay, I quite like this, and
Hmm.
I got 5e and played a little bit, played a part of a campaign before it kind of dwindled and
Yeah.
moved to Pathfinder, but. Um, I did like some of the elements of 5e.
Hmm.
I just thought it could be a little bit more focused and a little bit better. And I really like the Black Hack and sort of OSR things. So,
Yep.
and the other thing is that I'm a huge fan of folklore.
I,
I'm
I was going
pretty
to bring that
obsessed
up.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty obsessed with folklore. Lots of books, and I love
Hmm.
studying folklore and folkloristics and things like that. So I sort of self-published Romance of the Perilous Land there, which was sort of using some 5e bits.
Hmm.
Um, I think there's quite a few people that say that they'll introduce Romance as a 5e hack, and it's not quite that. It's got
Mm,
more differences than
yeah.
similarities, I would say, to that. But I certainly took some inspiration from it, and I took inspiration from the Black Hack as well, and kind of some other games, TNT. There's inspiration there as well, and that was the first um, kind of bigger game that I'd done at that point, that I self-published and put out. Um, and again, look, I think people, it seemed to be fairly well received. It wasn't
Hmm.
sort of this huge game or anything.
Hmm.
Very very rarely they are, but People seem to like it, and I just really enjoyed writing it because I get to write about British folklore, which
Right.
I really love. Um, and it wasn't for I think maybe a couple of years. Again,
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly
Yeah.
the dates, but I was I came across a post on Joseph McCulloch's blog.
Mhm.
The For those who don't know, he wrote Frostgrave and Oathmark and
Mhm.
things like that. So a really fantastic skirmish game.
Yeah.
He's so prolific in terms of the war games that he creates. They're pretty amazing. I don't know how he does it. He puts so much out during the year.
It's
He's
yeah.
very productive. And he'd put he'd been writing about Quill, and he'd been writing about, oh, it'd be great to do like a Frostgrave version of Quill. I was like, oh, I know this guy. I commented and was like, hey, no, you should totally do that.
Yeah. That's
That would
me.
be awesome. Yeah, he hasn't yet, so I need to follow up
Oh.
on that. It's been a number of years, but well, I was thrilled to see that someone that I sort of knew from the industry, I knew of,
Mhm.
not actually knew him, but
Yeah.
had taken interest in Quill, and he ended up. I think I emailed him saying, if you do want to do that, that's absolutely cool. It's all sort of Creative Commons stuff. Just like
Yeah.
go ahead and do that. And he was and still is. He was working at Osprey Games
Mhm.
at the time, and that's when they purely did. Obviously, Osprey very much famous for their historical
Right.
books. But they also had their wargaming and board gaming
Mhm.
sort of section. But what he was saying to me was that I know internally over there they're looking at creating a line of role playing games.
Mhm.
I was like, hello, role playing games, you say? He said, I'll put you in touch with one of the editors over there and just kind of like introduce you. I was like, yeah, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Um, and he did. So that I kind of got to talking with them, and a few years later,
Mhm.
that's when they in 2019
Mhm.
put out Romance of the Perilous Land, the sort of the full big book hardback
Right.
edition, and alongside that, they released Paleo Mythic
Yep.
by Graham Rose, which is
Mhm.
another really fantastic game,
Mhm.
to essentially create their line. This was the first it was a bit of a kind of testing pot, I guess, for how their line's going to shake up. So if these didn't do very well, then I guess they were just going to tank the line. But thankfully,
Right.
they've been putting more
Oh,
stuff out ever since. They've
oh
some
God, yes.
amazing games.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
those both were the two things about it was one, of course, um, oh my God, Osprey Games is making role playing games. What is
Mm.
this? So all eyes are going to be on it. But the other wonderful thing about it is it seems like it brought it to several people because of the distribution of it. People, we would see your games within several retail outlets. It was on Amazon. It was easily accessible for a lot of people to get these games and affordable, which was fantastic for quite a few people. So, um, people were picking it up. I mean, I remember picking it up. I picked up both it and Paleo Mythic at the same time because I think Amazon was having a sale. So it's like, and they do. Most people bought this and this. Like, well, okay. I mean, 15% off. Like, well, I'll save on shipping. Let's go ahead and get them. And so I really like Paleo Mythic, but the one thing that talked to me and a lot of other people is Romance of the Perilous Lands because again, for if and it doesn't just have to be British folklore, but if you're a fan of folklore in general, but the the what you were focusing on within the game is universally familiar around the world. I mean, who doesn't know about King Arthur? Who's not familiar with the Robin Hood trope? And again, the way that the introduction to the game, the bits and pieces that you borrowed. You mentioned you borrowed a bit from 5e. The game is very easy to read, very accessible, and it's something where you can get up and running without having to spend a whole week reading and preparing for the game. And I think a lot of people, because I at this time, I think Pendragon 5.5 was was on its way out. I don't know if they were done publishing anything with them.
Yeah,
And
I'm not sure.
there and then as far as the OSR was concerned, their focus was more on fairy tale folklore, if you got that. So it was more of that thing. If you were looking for an Arthurian style game or something such as that, your options were pick up Pendragon, 5.5, or if you get
Mm.
lucky enough and you found, Prince Valiant at a secondhand store,
Yeah.
or someone's grandfather died and they were selling it at a garage sale. But there really wasn't a lot of that out there. And then, of course, there was also, most everything that wasn't OSR was high fantasy. These this super hyper magical worlds, where you were superheroes. And so this in my opinion was kind of a nice aesthetic where kind of this wasn't this nitty gritty OSR, everyone's going to die on their first delve into the dungeon, nor was it this super high fantasy where, you were given a participation award because, you were this wonderful superhero and you can never die. So, just go have fun and, save the world. So it was this nice kind of change, I feel, that where if you were looking for something new, you didn't really want to move away from fantasy, but you didn't want to dive down the OSR grunge hole, and you didn't want to sit down and spend a week and a half reading Warhammer rules. This was a wonderful, delightful game that I think people, when they got it, they really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And also, it's something that people could easily create their own stories within this game. I mean, you have a setting, so to speak, but again, it's not like here's my game and here's 800 pages of lore. It's just here's some things that you can play with and go have fun in the sandbox. So
Yeah,
you did a
absolutely.
brilliant job at it. So
Well,
sorry,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
That's really nice to hear. And my part of my intention of creating the game was,
Mhm,
I've said this elsewhere, is to almost get people who are looking for other games that have been introduced to 5e
mhm,
to take a baby step into something else where it's not, it's still fantasy, as you
yeah,
say, but it's not, it has a. I think the thing is that it has a story to it, and it has a sort of a point to it, and I think the reason why the folklore thing resonates is, as you say, it's because people kind of know it,
mhm,
and people can create their own stories in it fairly easily because they've got, particularly if you live in the UK, you live in Britain, you can kind of go down the road and you can find just something weird that the devil's done,
right,
about turning milk into a cow or something. But that kind of thing where you can just pull, because the lore of the game is
mhm,
the law is the folklore.
right,
So you can kind of just pull and mix and match kind of stuff that's you read, and just put, go on Wikipedia, go get a few books out, and kind of pull all that together. And
mhm,
while games like D&D and certainly Pathfinder
yeah,
have, you look in their bestiary monster manual or whatever, and they'll have a bunch of stuff from, because
mhm,
they just obviously take stuff from all sorts of
right,
sources, and they'll have loads of stuff from folklore as well, but it doesn't quite mesh, I think, as well, especially when
right,
you're thinking about some of the really weird stuff
mhm,
in folklore. If you give clothes to a brownie, that's how you can appease them, and they'll just kind of run off into the sunset.
mhm,
That kind of thing. Whereas I think when you're looking at a Pathfinder or a D&D, it's more about how much you can hit
smash
them.
it.
Whereas I think there's just a little bit more wonder than in general folklore than that. So um, it kind of spanned from that, and kind of I really wanted to create my own um, sort of version of Britain. I didn't want
Hmm.
it to be Britain because I think with that comes just um, a lot of baggage
Yes.
that I kind of thought, oh well, if I'm doing it as the UK or whatever, then I kind of have to have these things here, and then that kind of makes it into a little bit of a chore. But if I make it into my own sort of continent, their own country, then I can kind of do what I want with it.
Right.
I've severed some of those limitations, and I can be a little bit freer and worry a little bit less about, well, should I include Saxons here? And well, we're gonna have Viking raiders at this point, and I can take it all out and just
Right.
sort of make my own timeline, as it were. Like
Mhm.
the humans are only like 1,000 years old, and it's like, uh, but you had giants beforehand, and there's no there's sort of coded like Celts and Picts and
Mhm.
things like that, but not really. But I know plenty of people who have played that. They've played it like they would a more historic
Historical.
Arthurian game. That sort of in between the
Mhm.
that sub Roman
Right.
um, time.
The
Um,
the more, and I'm not going to say boring, but the non-romantic version of King
yeah,
Arthur and
well,
whatnot. Yeah.
well, that's right. I guess the kind of the grittier sort of before the Saxon raiders came in, you've got Arthur, defending against the Anglo-Saxons, and that kind of the a matter of Britain, I think it was. Which is really cool. It's cool to
Yeah.
people are kind of taking that. Some people are making it a little bit more like Penguin Dragon, and they're using the Christian faith and things like that, and bringing that into it.
Hmm.
Again, I sort of severed that because I just thought having kind of all of these sort of Celtic gods was just kind of cool,
Yeah.
and it that kind of does exist in some of the older stories, and the Mabinogion and
Hmm.
things like that, where kind of Arthur sort of in part comes from. So and it takes away again a bit of that baggage as well.
Yeah.
I don't want Christianization in there. Does that, what do I do about that? There's all sorts of things, but
Right.
it's like, oh well, if I have you know um math and the Morrigan and things like
Hmm.
that in there, it's kind of cool. It's just cool, man.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it is. It gives that just that wonderful amount of familiarity that you have. Like I
Mm,
said, people know who Arthur is, but they may not know some of the stories outside of the Excalibur movie, or even better, Knight Riders. But it still is enough for them to go in there and play without just being just this whole lore dump of something that you're completely unfamiliar with. And
mm,
and and people enjoy that because we grew up with these stories. That's kind of why some of us got into role playing games, because we wanted to go be Robin Hood or King Arthur or Prince Valiant or whomever. And uh and they don't want to, they don't want to be rolling 850 dice and looking at 8-sided character sheets and figuring stuff out. So they just want to have a good time and enjoy it. And so you've again, you've created this game. I wasn't really. I assumed that the reception was good. So because I mean, you've continued to create more for Romance of the Perilous Land. Self-published through Trollish Delver, or so. I mean, it's, as far as I can tell, this is the only thing that you've done through Osprey, or was there other things that you provided through Osprey?
mm. No, no. So this was the only thing that I've done,
Okay.
and they very kindly let me sort of go ahead and publish on my own platform because you know they're a they're a big company. They're they're a busy company.
Mhm. Yeah.
They've got a lot of lines and things. So, if I said, okay, well, it'd be really cool to put this out. It's like
Mhm.
we could, but it might be a couple of years until we
Okay.
do. It's like, well, in that case, can I can I put can I put it out myself? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
Yeah.
That's great. 'Cause it also gives you, I suppose, a little bit more control over things,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Osprey wouldn't necessarily be putting out sort of very short adventures either, whereas I can
Oh.
just sort of do that myself and put stuff out on a whim, which is good. So yeah, I'm just continuing to put out little bits here and there for it, just little expansions.
Mhm. So speaking of whim, um, around the time that after I discovered your game, and this is in when starting to get more involved in the social media side of things, one of the things that I personally noticed is you are someone who kind of creates on a whim. I've seen many a post going, "What if something did this?" And then 2 days later, it's like, guess what's on itch. And it just you seem to have this working aesthetic of, if something provides you with a flight of fancy, you're going to create something with it. And I think that's absolutely marvelous. I mean, that's where where is it here? I will find it soon enough. But games such as Stargazer, for example, that was something that, as far as I know, you post something about that, and then it's just this natural progression of you posting progress of it, turning from just like an idea or a whim into a game. And I forget, I forget. It's like if you had watched a movie, it's like, I'm going to make something now. But it does seem to be, at least from your postings on social media, a lot of your natural progression of, something inspires you, and I'm going to make a game, and within a couple days there's something out. Whereas if something inspires me and I go, I'm going to make a game, it's still sitting on my hard drive 5 years later. However
Sure, and I've got
simplified
a
it might
lot
be.
of that, by the way.
I'm
There's a
sure.
lot of stuff. There's a graveyard
No.
of stuff on my hard drive.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is that
Mhm.
I don't have a great attention span. It take
Ah.
to cause sort of write a book for
Mhm.
a year like romance is.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It
I mean,
was
it's a great experience, but it's difficult to, I suppose, maintain that
focus.
enthusiasm,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
going back every day and write. You're right, yeah. So you're writing, whereas I think, right, I'm really jazzed about this idea right now.
Right.
I'm really excited about this. I need to complete it now, otherwise it won't happen. And
Oosh.
what more often than not, I will actually, I'll sort of start something. I'm like, I'm getting tired now. I'll come back to it tomorrow, and then by that time, I'm like, I can't be bothered.
Uh, okay.
So yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So in part, it's just due to the
yeah.
necessity of how my brain works.
Mhm.
In that I just kind of have to get something down. In some cases, it is like I'll do like a few weeks or something, and I'll do like I'll send something to some friends and say, hey, do you want to just like um play this a little bit
Yeah.
and kind of put something out. In other cases, it's a hack or something. Like Stargazer
Mhm.
is sort of kind of based a bit on Heartseeker,
Yep.
kind of my other uh, very sort of minimalist OSR game,
Mhm.
um, but just made more Ronnie James Dio,
Mhm.
because I really love Dio.
What's he inspired?
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, well, it'd be really cool if like the whole like Dio universe was a game, right?
Right.
Which is why it's sort of a, a kind of a dying Earth type game. It's
Mhm.
sort of based around Jack Vance.
Yeah.
It's based around Dio, and again, it's not a this must be maybe uh, um, 12 pages or something. It's
But
there's
it's
not it's not full of lore or anything, but it's just that kind of, if you want to play a kind of a get to the table and play a game that's inspired by Dio.
well,
Uh,
you put on your
Yeah,
favorite Dio album and you get inspired, and
yeah,
then you've got the rules to move forward, and you
absolutely,
can
yeah.
live the songs. That's that. There's quite not quite a few, but there's a few up there that are like that, which I think
Mm.
is fantastic. And I mean, there seems to not a sudden rush, but over the past year, 5 or 6 games inspired by some sort of band or musician or
It's a
something
big thing
that's going
now.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, the sort of the music element, I certainly, probably in part credit a bit to Merkborg
Hmm.
on that one in
Oh
terms
yes.
of, that very much has that doom metal,
Yeah.
black metal style to it. And I've noticed there's, and I do this with my games as well.
Hmm.
There's a lot more people who put playlists against the
Yes.
games. So they'll, so you can, I don't know, listen to it while you're playing, or just purely. In my case, it's just mostly for inspiration.
Yes.
So this is how it kind of sounds in my head.
So speaking of playlists and inspiration, so another thing that you've worked on recently or working on did you not do you did an adventure for Against the Dark Master? Is that correct? Or
I did,
okay.
yes. Yeah, against the Darkness. So I don't know whether it's
Yeah,
up
and
here
that's
or not.
for those who aren't
Oh.
familiar with that. Against the Dark Master is essentially the I wouldn't call it the OSR version, but the OSR version of MERP. It's a wonderful game, and but it carries a bit of that crunch. But one of the things when they first started the Kickstarter for it was there was an accompanying playlist and very much inspired, a game that was inspired by this particular style
Mm.
of music and musicians that they provided on there, and so that is seems to be an ongoing thing, which is great because a lot of times, I would love to have what inspired the creators to make this game, whereas me going on YouTube and looking for generic fantasy ambiance music and it being the same bullshit every time. So, but anyways, yes, back to
Yeah,
Against the Dark
yeah,
Master.
that's right. Yeah, Against the Darkness is a really great game. So,
Mhm.
yeah, Silence of Dawnfell is the one I wrote sort of for its kind of for its launch, I guess.
Yep.
Uh, as you say, it's a very MERPy game. I
Mhm.
really like MERP. I never actually sort of played it like
Mhm.
originally, but I did many years ago. I got the I think the second edition books, and really I was super confused by it. But I mean, one, I'm a
We
huge
all
Tolkien
were.
fan.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, whew, it's just that's. I think in part it's also because it's just the way that like the typeface and how it's all sort of crammed together and stuff.
Mhm.
But being a huge Tolkien fan, it's like, okay, this is quite cool. Because it's not very, it doesn't quite, it's not like the One Ring role playing game where that seeks to very much emulate the kind of epic
Yes.
grandioseness of yeah, the Lord of the Rings or
Mhm.
whatever. It's sort of this is epic, epic fantasy, but with you can lock bits of your opponent off. And Against the Dark Master, it's sort of really, um, I suppose, distilled a lot of
Yes.
the like demystified, I guess, some of what was quite confusing in MERP, and some of the tables. There's obviously a lot of tables
Yes.
in Rollmaster and MERP. And there are tables in it against the Dark Master, but it's a lot easier. And actually, that's part of the beauty of it. I think everything around it is fairly, it's I'd say kind of mid crunch level.
Mhm.
It's fairly easy to pick up the combat itself, and I'm fairly sure this is part of the kind of the tagline for it. But that the combat is very crunchy.
Yes.
There's all sorts of stuff that's going on in combat that is just really fun. It kind of y- you've kind of got your weapon lengths and speeds and your or your order, and kind of rolling on all your tables and all your critical hits, and seeing how many fingers you're gonna get lopped off at any given moment. And you just essentially you don't want to get into combat in against
No,
Darkmaster. You
no, you
just
don't.
avoid it at all costs. You will get annihilated no matter what.
that
Um,
that was the warning that I got when I first played the game.
yeah,
I believe it literally was. It's like, okay, you guys may not want to get into combat unless it's absolutely necessary. And of course, typical, first time playing the game, eh, we got this. And no, we didn't got this. So,
yeah. Even a very kind of like low level thing that'll get you because it's so swingy in terms of one wrong move, one bad dice roll, and you're bleeding out. So the first thing you have to do is make sure you have bandages. Like just have bandages because you need it.
so the Against the Dark Master again is I don't know it's just there's just something about it because the look, the style, and again it's playing on a bit of the nostalgia, but it wasn't promising MERP. It was promising an experience, so to speak.
Mm.
But it was, and it provided that, but and then some because it made it its own thing. So was this something that they reached out to you to do, or did you contact them, or did something just happen organically as far as you writing this adventure for them?
Um, so they reached out to me, and they were just because I think they were fans of romance,
Yep.
so they kind of saw a little bit of parallels between the two. And yeah, they just said, "Do you want to have a?" I think I might have been because I was talking about how I think it was when the Kickstarter was happening, or just about to launch, and I was getting
Hmm.
really excited about it because it just looked really cool, and it was like
Hmm.
heavy metal combat. It's like, oh yes, this is really cool. So, I had a meeting with them um, over online and sort of talked a little bit about what they were envisaging for like a module and then I sort of kind of went through some draft ideas that I had, and they're so that team is so nice. That they're such nice chaps, and they were really receptive just about kind of the outline. So I kind of put that together and yeah, sent it through to them, and thankfully they liked it. um, so I was very fortunate, I think, to be brought into the fold a bit there, and again fortunate um to have also done some work for their latest Kickstarter as well,
Yeah.
which finished
Hmm.
maybe 4 months ago,
A
four or
few
five
months ago.
months ago.
Yep. I'm
Yeah.
waiting for it.
Se-
Yeah.
yeah, Secrets of the Golden Throne, which
Hmm.
is um, you know very Arthurian. That's the kind of the whole thing is
Yeah.
sort of British folklore type
Hmm.
stuff. So they were like, do you want to do some stuff for this?" It's like, yeah, I do want to do some stuff for this. Thank you very much. So for this one, I've been involved in just writing some of the
Hmm.
setting material for that,
Hmm.
which was just a lot of fun. I really love what they've done with their own sort of take on as they call it, kind of Avalon,
Hmm.
um, and sort of the Arthurian uh, sort of myths
Yeah.
and things. It's a really kind of fresh take on it. That's a little bit more, epic fantasy, kind of
Uh-huh.
Chronicles of Prydain, that kind of thing. So it's
That's
very cool.
great. That's great. I'm looking forward to it. That was one of those when it came out. I didn't, unfortunately, I when I backed the original one, I initially signed up for the PDF, and there was a small window. It's like, hey, if you back the PDF, you can get the hardback. And I missed that window and regretted it because it took a long time for the physical copy to be available to the public. And so when
Mhm.
this one came out, I immediately hopped on and just, it could have said, everything's hardback and you get a free, sheet with a map on it and pillowcases and soaps. I don't care. Just make sure I get it all. because I don't want to make the same mistake again. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that to come to definitely hopefully drop soon. So continuing on, it's we're going on an hour 30, so I don't want to keep you too late. But recently, right? So recently, I again following your social media thing, and you share a lot of the stuff that you're working on. It looks like you started doing something different. That you started creating something called Dead Gods, which is a skirmish game.
Mm.
And I don't know because your history here or your work here is so vast. I don't know if that's something that you've done. I mean, you've got a history with it. You're familiar with the the skirmish games.
Mm.
I mean, you're familiar with them. You know, you mentioned the ones from Osprey, and you had your time in the past with Warhammer 40K, but it just seemed like out of the blue, it's like I'm going to make a skirmish game and see how it goes. So what brought Dead Gods about just out of the blue? And again, like you said, you thought of something, I got to do it now before I don't want to do it anymore. But it is a different
Yeah,
it's a different twist.
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Hmm.
I have been wanting to write a war game, skirmish game for the years, for a long time, and I've just not been able to do it. Every time I've written something, I've just hated all the words that I've vomited out. It's horrible. Um, so I've just ended up just kind of again they all live in the great cemetery of my laptop.
Right.
Um, but I'm I'm a big fan of kind of Frostgrave
Hmm.
and Mordheim and kind of skirmish games like that. And
Yes.
I've fairly recently been just reading a load of them, a lot of different games, and yeah, I was just inspired to just try it again. And I had this idea around what again, that taking some inspiration from Mordheim, taking some inspiration from Frostgrave, which is in
Hmm.
turn inspired by Mordheim, and a couple of the other kind of Ganesha games,
Hmm.
Song of Blazing Heroes, and things like that, which I really enjoy. And I thought, well, if I can create games that some of my sort of most popular games are 4-page long A5 things.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, what if? And it was a little again, something that I really like to do is just set myself a little challenge. So I was like, could I create a full skirmish game in that using that kind of restriction?
Hmm.
And that's where Gods came about. I just kind of thought about what sounded cool. I came up with the title before I came up with anything. It's like that's pretty gnarly
Oh
sounding.
hell yeah.
It's like, well, what were these dead gods doing? Why are they dying? What's going on? It's a mystery. Nobody knows why they're dying. They're all getting murdered. Um, and turn it into sort of a little bit like Frostgrave in the actually it's not about going in and killing your opponent.
Hmm.
You form war cults. All the war cults have different reasons for wanting to harvest the body parts of these dead gods,
Hmm.
or the relics of these dead gods. Um, some because they want to feed an evil entity that lives in the woods that's going to become a big cosmic god. Some
Hmm.
because they want to essentially become gods themselves, have this amazing kind of psychic foresight. Some because they want to become immortal. All of this stuff. But like put it into a very kind of short, um, get it to the table, play it, bada bing, bada boom,
Hmm.
type thing. So, in fact, the other thing I was inspired by were the one-page rules.
Right.
Um, those absolutely fantastic, um, very terse, very short rules that you can play with your Warhammer sort of figures and things like that. I thought, okay, well, that's really cool that they can do all of that and they can honestly make a really great Warhammer game
And not
free.
lose the aesthetic, not lose the
And not,
feeling,
yeah,
the
exactly,
feel.
not lose any of that and have a really cool game. And I thought, oh, maybe I could try and do something like that, because every time I've tried to do something a little bit bigger, I've just lost interest in it. So um, yeah, I put that together and I thought, okay, well, I'll put this out there, kind of play tested it a bunch, and you had quite a bit of fun with it, and um, it got some, yeah, again, it was received fairly well. I think in
Mhm.
part because people sort of assumed that I just create role playing games, and I kind of assumed that as well. So it was like, oh, he's uh he's gone and butchered another medium,
Oh no.
which why? So there's kind of a little bit of a community developing
Mhm.
around it now, which is great. I've seen a few
Yeah.
people creating their own videos. They've made their own war cults.
Oh, that's
People who have
fantastic.
painting their own, or they're making their own paper minis, and they're posting on the kind of the little forum on itch around their
Mhm.
what play reports and things like that, which is amazing to see. Did not think that people would be doing that, so it has some momentum to it. So I've been like, okay, well, I've released a supplement for it, Unholy Scavengers,
Mhm.
which has a bunch more like new models to it, and some scenarios and things like that. And I've got a sort of a because someone in a video said, I'd really like it if there was solo rules to it. It's like, yeah, I should probably do some solo rules because like everyone does solo rules, right?
Right.
Um, so I'm putting that together at the moment as well, just some kind of nice short solo
Fantastic.
rules for it. So
Fantastic.
um, yeah, I'll probably kind of continue doing the odd little supplement for that, but it's just a nice little kind of quick game to play. Like with a lot of these things, it's
Mhm.
more like, what is something that I just really want to play? What do I want to see in the market?
Right.
Well, I want to see a skirmish game where I can use like three models, because I don't want to spend that much money on it, and I don't want to kind of spend all my time painting it. I
Right.
do love painting, but you want to get stuff to the table.
Mhm.
So 3, 4 models a piece. You can just use your kitchen table. You might spend 20 to 30 minutes playing a game.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I want, because it's like just it's for me really, but it also turns out that other people kind of want that as
Oh,
well.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's sticker shock can be a big thing with miniature skirmish games and miniature gaming these
Ooh,
days. I mean, it always
yeah.
has been, but these days it gets to be a bit much. Um, so fantastic, and again, well deserved. The game looks absolutely fabulous and fun. So I as now you need to I that's where I kind of feel that's where you were uh, or sorry, I'm fumbling on myself. I dyslexic and ADHD, so the words sometimes don't come out sometimes. But
Nice.
so I think we're kind of up to the present aspect of of where we are with you and your game. So, but obviously add more if I'm mistaken. But what are you currently working on, or what's coming next, if anything, with you?
So I guess the next stuff that will be coming out will be the Dolmenwood
Oh, that's right.
stuff.
Silly me.
So I was very, very fortunate to Gavin Norman, who obviously did an amazing job with Old School Essentials, and
Hmm.
does you know they do a fantastic um, sort of so high quality, and just I can't say enough good things about OSE. It's one of my favorite games,
Hmm.
and I really love Dolmen Wood and get
Yeah,
Wormskin, the sort of original um, zines for that,
they were
because it was very much based on fairy tales and
yes,
folklore and things like that. It's like, oh,
right up
it's my
your alley.
catnip.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have me some of that. Um, and Gavin reached out to me a few years ago and said, "Hey, I'm putting together a full Dolmen Wood thing. Do you want to be involved?" Um, so like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Wait,
The
hold on. Let me see if I can recreate it. Actually, yeah, we're doing this Domanwood thing, and yes, yes, whatever. Yes. Okay. So
Yeah.
carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much that in email form.
Nice.
Um, yeah. Um, yeah, so for that, it's there's a hardback adventure,
Mhm,
Imelda's Song, which is
yep,
going to be one of four that is part of the Kickstarter.
mhm,
And I've also kind of contributed to the campaign book as well a little bit.
excellent.
Just my own little hex in there, which is a lot of fun to do because Dolwood's just great. I'm
Yes.
so excited for that to finally be out because I need to bring some people together and we'll do like a full sandbox
Mhm.
Dolmenwood
That's yeah.
um Dolmenwood game. But yeah, super excited to see that's come to fruition because like it was
It's
so
been
successful the Kickstarter, and I think the quality of the stuff that
yes.
Exalted Funeral and Gavin putting out with the team. I don't know. It looks amazing.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
it's so amazing maps and
I've
gorgeous.
I was on the, subscribed to their Patreon, through
Mm,
most of the process, and on the Patreon, they provide the Patreon users of a certain tier, you get to download, stuff, work in
yeah.
progress and whatnot, and it's absurd. It's just, you're getting these things, and all you're doing is just looking at going, are we it's like a kid on traveling cross country. You're just like, "Are we done yet? Are we done yet?
Oh, it's so
When are
good.
we
There's
done
so
yet?"
much.
Yeah. I know.
It's so
Come on.
much. It's
When are we gonna get to Disneyland? Are we there yet? Yeah, it's fabulous, and this is it's gonna be big, and and again, another, wonderful individual and group of people who are well deserving in all of the accolades that they get. But,
absolutely.
so you're working with that. Anything else that, you're currently working on? I mean, I know it's hard to say.
Um, yeah,
You may watch,
this
a football game tomorrow and go, "I'm Blood Bowl. I'm making Blood Bowl now."
I'm
So
making Blood Bowl 3. Um, so there is going to be another Osprey
mhm. Oh,
game coming out next year,
mhm.
next August, which is going to be more horror oriented,
Yeah.
horror investigation oriented.
Nice.
Um, I can't say too much about that at the moment, but
Yeah, fair enough.
hopefully fairly soon. We're just sorting out sort of artists and things.
Mhm.
So it's that should be that was kind of my last year has been writing that. Um, so I finally handed that manuscript in like April.
Mhm.
So that was a really great experience. But the thing I'm sort of writing at the moment is a deluxe version of Heartseeker. So
Oh.
for those who don't know Heartseeker,
Mhm.
it's a sort of an A5 4-page little sort of
Yep.
leaflet game, which is an OSR game. It's based on kind of the Holmes Blue Book and Searches of the Unknown, and kind of this and that in terms of OSR. And again, this was sort of my little challenge to myself: could I create a complete OSR game that would include a bestiary and everything like that,
Mhm.
and a character sheet, all in one? So that is, as you can imagine, it's very bare bones. But I've tried to just put as much in as possible to make it playable and
Mhm.
fun. Um, but I think the time's come to do a new version, which is going to be deluxe. It's going to be a kind of a bigger book. It's still going to be like the rules itself are still going to be the kind of the 2 pages. However, the most of the book is going to be options and kind of
Okay.
more, how do you create dungeons? How do you create campaigns? How
Mhm.
do you do procedures and processes and a lot of sort of, I guess, uh, referee tips and things like that. And I think I want to put in things that I think just overlooked or taken for granted when you're actually introducing someone to role playing games in general. And a lot of people start with say D&D 5e, but I still feel that if you're completely new to it, you don't really have any other frame of reference. I think it can still be quite difficult to parse what is this.
Absolutely.
Because I think sometimes that it's more implicit than it is explicit in terms of you are playing a game. This is what you should be. There's a lot that's kind of just yeah, you kind of take for granted
Right.
some of the kind of nomenclature and all that stuff. So I want to uh, talk a little bit more freely about what role playing games are and what they aren't, and particularly what the OSR is.
Oh,
I think.
that's oh, well, good luck with
Well,
that one.
yeah, okay.
No, I'm
Well,
just
yeah,
joking, but yeah,
exactly.
you
No,
you've seen
there's a
the
good 100 pages of that.
yeah. Oh, excellent, excellent. No, you've seen the I'm
Yeah.
joking, but yeah, what what is the OSR? And every day there's a new definition of it. So yeah, but no, that's
Who knows?
I know.
I know what my version is, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's totally different to sort of this person's here. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. I've just sort of been writing that on and off for
fantastic.
a little bit.
I'm looking forward to that because I thoroughly enjoyed Heartseeker, and of course it's again one of the wonderful things I like about the things that you do is very rarely is something one and done. It's at least there's some additional product or support that comes with the game, or for most of them. But Heartseeker, Isle of the Dam, Ruins of the Dread Bishop. I mean, even the skirmish game, Dead Gods, you already have something out. Continuing to support it, Romance of the Paris Lands, Quill. I mean, so on. It's just I joke about Osprey, and I know other people do because even though Osprey has been fantastic with this RPG line that they've provided, there's a joke. It's like if you have other stuff that you want to do for your game, don't publish it through Osprey because they're one and done. But they've since changed because I mean other games like Jackals and
Yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
whatnot is well supported. But there's a lot of these wonderful games that they've done over the years where it's just like, is there more? And it's just no. I mean, unless you're Alan Barr. Other than that, it's one and done. So
Yeah, that's right. And I'm glad they are putting more stuff out as well.
yes,
I know that, in part well, my perception of it anyway was
mhm,
probably, this is very much a uh, Osprey Games being more of
yes,
a kind of a war game sort of thing, and that's what they did. They put out this is the core book, and they'll put
mhm,
loads of them out. Really great games, but it's not something that they necessarily do a
yeah,
load of support for those games unless your name's Frostgrave
right,
or Oathmark, because of these big flagship games. And I think probably maybe the perception was that they'll kind of do the same model for role playing games, which for me a different beast.
yeah,
And it's why I'm so glad that they kind of let me take stuff and kind of publish through my own sort of small independent publisher as well, which is great.
right. So So this has been wonderful, Scott. It's been such a joy to speak with you because I'm always interested in people's history. These interviews that I've started doing on this channel, everyone has been different and enlightening in its own special way, and I'm really enjoying just kind of I'm here like this, just like tell me more. I'm listening. I mean, there's a reason why unprofessional is in the stupid little shows that I do is because like I'm not a professional interviewer. I'm just here to listen to you tell me wonderful stories about making games and stuff with all the people I have on. But you've been very kind in providing that. But again, this is your platform. So is there anything else before we wrap up here that you would like to refer to? I'm going to have all your information in the description, link to your games and whatnot through your blog, through Osprey and through Drive Through and whatnot. But is there anything else that we haven't touched upon that you wanted to talk about?
Um,
And if
I,
not, don't
I,
worry
I
about it. It's fine. But go on.
yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Just I guess that my main thing that I just like to talk
Mhm.
about a bit is just supporting indie role
Yes.
playing games, and I don't mean like mine necessarily, but it's a big wide world out there. So I definitely encourage people to sort of have a look and see what's out there, because you go on Itch and there are literally thousands of
Yeah.
games on there. You will find something that you really like, and maybe something that you much prefer to maybe one of the kind of bigger sort of more corporate games that you might be
Yes.
playing at the moment. But if you like that, that is absolutely no
Right.
problem either. But definitely just support indie, help that realm grow, more, and help people be seen, particularly people who maybe from less privileged backgrounds,
Hmm.
marginalized folks, all of that, really, help helps, even if
Oh,
it's just sort of doing a donation, or something like that. So yeah.
cannot agree more. I mean, and discovering these new games has been a wonderful thing for myself. I my people that I know do the same thing. My son who is a gamer, he's discovering stuff on his own. He wants to be a game designer someday. So just trying to
Amazing.
set this foundation of just there's just because it's not 3 books, 90 pages a piece doesn't mean it's not a role playing game, which you've proven time and time again. And it doesn't need to be 90 pages in order for you to enjoy it and have a good time. And many other creators out there are doing the same thing. And they also likewise deserve all the accolades, because at the end of the day, you're doing this because of the love of the game, or you're doing that because you can't help but be creative. You're not, most people out there aren't doing this full time. This is not most people's full-time job. They're doing it because they want to, and because they've got a passion for it, because they enjoy it, and they're not doing it to make a quick buck or anything like that. It's just something they enjoy, and something that they want other people to enjoy, which I think is the important part of it. And that's everybody, who's out there. So yes, I can't agree more. Go out, discover, an independent designer. Randomly go find someone that you've maybe heard of word of mouth, or somebody that you've never seen before, and check out their game. You never know. You never know what you're going to find. In this variety, this cornucopia of games that's going on right now. We're kind of in a new golden age, so to speak. So, but yes, absolutely, please go out and support the indie creators out there. Well, Scott, again, this has been a wonderful chat, and I hope you enjoyed it also.
Absolutely
And
did.
oh, thank you so much. And so, again, we'll provide all the information in the description. So definitely go check out Scott's works. You will see, there's definitely something there for you, without question. If you've, after watching this, and there's other games that we haven't touched upon that you'll find. So definitely go check out his, and definitely once Heartseeker, the heart what's the not Heartseeker second edition, the Heartseeker
The
complete,
deluxe edition.
the
I've not
deluxe. There we
actually
go.
settled on a name for it yet. I'm just
but
calling it that.
but
But
look
yeah.
look forward to that when it comes out. Definitely, if you see Scott's name pop up on things such as Domanwood and whatnot, definitely check out his game, because you will not be disappointed. And go out and buy Romance of the Perilous Lands. It's available on Amazon right now, and it's probably discounted, as it always is. And or buy it through Osprey, or better yet, if you see a copy of it at your retail store or bookstore, pick it up there. So, yeah, I'm always bad of ending this part of the show. I don't know when to shut up. So there we go. This has been yet another completely unprofessional interview, and with my wonderful guest here, Scott Malthouse. Thank you for watching, and everyone, have a wonderful day. Bye.